So hi everyone, great to be here and great to see you, Sean. This is, I think, a perfect lead in to some of the things I'm going to talk about. So I'm a professor here in the Human-Computer Interaction Institute. My research broadly looks at how do we help people make sense of overwhelming information using kind of AI, visualization techniques. I'm also a cognitive psychologist. That's what my PhD is in. So it's really thinking about how do we put people together with AI systems. So that's what I'm going to talk to you a little bit about today. I think we've heard from Sean and others, it's challenging, it's hard to create innovative and impactful AI solutions. And we start to see questions about things like, is this a bubble? What's real here? What's the killer app? I'm going to tell you about one of the strategies that we've been using to explore that question. And it's based on, there's actually a really nice HBR article talking about humans and AI collaborating, joining forces. And they looked at over 1,500 companies and found that the number of human-machine collaboration principles you use actually influences your performance and improvement. And we're talking about kind of multiple X performance improvement here. And I'm just going to contrast that with how we often think about using LLMs today. We think of them as replacing instead of collaborating. We think about them as replacing humans doing thinking with agents or multiple agents. We think about replacing computation and all of these rich forms of diverse computation we have with sort of an all-in-one component. We think about replacing the rich visual interfaces we interact with a chat-based interface. And I'm going to argue and show you some examples and some case studies here of the power we can get in augmenting cognition. Thinking of it as LLMs as a partner that is partnering with humans, partnering with other algorithms, partnering with and enriching the interface. So I'm going to talk about 3 case studies. These are papers that are either published or in progress. The first one is around online decision making, and this is work from my student Michael Liu, who's now at Google in their Human plus AI area. So one of the big challenges with, many of you have probably shopped for something online, I would assume. It's a challenge because there's so much information. You have to go to dozens of pages to even figure out what do you care about, right? And you can't take the human out of the loop because only you know what you care about. I know that, I'm 6'2", so I need a stroller that has an extendable handle. Otherwise, I'm going to be hunched over. That's not going to show up in the Wirecutter or whatever is on here. So we need to understand what are all the different options, what are the criteria, what matters to me. So we need to augment human cognition. One way we can do that is to use the LLM as a knowledge retriever. We can go and ask it, what are all the different ways, criteria we might care about? We can make sure they're different, we can make sure they're diverse, we can make sure they're important. But this isn't enough, right? We have issues like hallucinations. How does it know what we actually care about? So instead, let's augment this computation by using complementary approaches, right? So here we're using a natural language inference model to basically look at the pages you're looking at, figure out which criteria are on those pages, how it's being talked about, and now we can augment the interface directly. So instead of having to chat with something, I'm just going about my normal web browsing and the system is helping me understand, oh, here's things you should care about, here's how they're talked about. You can decide how trustworthy these sources are and how much this should influence you. So from that we see really large improvements in reductions of hallucination rates in terms of accuracy, as well as task completion for users. Another example is scientific literature. So this is work we did with Allen Institute of AI and Semantic Scholar, who's looking to deploy this now. This is work by my student Hyunsu Kang, who's actually on the job market and industry curious, so you should all hire him if you can. So he's amazing. So actually, Sean talked a little bit about this with researchers. One of their big problems is staying on top of all of the literature that's coming out, right? And we don't read papers and think of them in terms of papers. We think of them in terms of threads of research, and there's multiple threads per paper. So how do we help researchers make sense of and stay on top of all of these threads of research? So our approach is to start with the human, right? Start with augmenting the human can decide, hey, here's a section of a related work that I care about, that has multiple threads that I actually care about. We can then use a complementary algorithm, so we're using large-scale graph mining here, to say, okay, what are all the papers that are related to those threads that are in there? That sort of allows us to expand the space of what we're looking at, but still grounded. We know that these are real papers, real citations. We have 100% confidence in that. And then we can use LLMs to take that, and again, in a similar way of grounding in the web pages, we're now grounding in that graph, and we can use that to generate these threads from that graph. And we can enrich a visual interface to allow users to explore those threads. What we find from this is that using our interface in this approach leads to significantly greater perceptions of helpfulness than just using LLMs and a chat interface alone. Finally, I'm going to talk about innovation. So this is work we're doing with Toyota. So Toyota is interested in how do we get our designers to think about the future of mobility more broadly? Like, how do we not get sort of stuck and fixated in the specific things we're looking at? We have been looking at bringing in analogical innovation. So think about the Wright brothers. They're sitting in their office. They see an inner tube box. They're just kind of playing with it. They see how it flexes, and then they figure out, hey, you know what? I can use this to drive how the wings of my airplane are going to be able to be moved and steerable with a very lightweight mechanism. Similar, NASA is they've looked at origami and how you can fold things, and they've created solar sails that can fold up in new ways to allow them to be stowed in rockets. So can we apply this to enable designers to have millions of inspirations and unlock that kind of design exploration? So what we've been doing is one of our systems is trying to sort of go and find a lot of analogies and help people understand them. So what we do here is we actually take seed data. So there's a small group of inspirations. There's maybe a few thousand that are hand curated, extremely high quality from a place called Ask Nature. A bunch of organisms that embed different mechanisms for solving problems. We can expand those, and here we're actually using LLMs in which we embed sort of a tree of life type of constraint. So we say, hey, go generate other things that are kind of like this, and you can use the tree of life to sort of guide that process. And then we take the resulting things and we cluster them and enrich an interface for designers to explore them. So this is what the interface looks like right now. You can see things like on the top left, there's different ways of creating sound by rubbing wings or legs together, or creating high tensile materials such as silks from different types of animals. And we have run this with real designers who preferred using our system, which is sort of deeply integrated. We also actually help them not only find these, but apply them to their design situations. We're working on testing these and moving through them further. So finally, let me end with another project we're doing with Toyota. Here we're trying to help people with the sketching process. So if you ask designers what's a core thing that they do every day, it's often sketching, right? And they are trying to do things like, hey, how do I make this car feel protective? How do I sort of evoke that? And they're starting to use things like LLMs and generative AI to actually play with these and see like what might look protective. The problem here is that they then get fixated on these specific things that are generated by the AI, and they're not really all that interesting. That doesn't look super interesting. So what we're trying to do is enrich that with analogies. So now you can see, I can click on analogies of things that are protective. Armadillo car, weird. Bunker, okay. Maybe a shield, yeah, all right. A tortoise, maybe there's something there. But critically, we're trying to embed this as part of their process. So now they can control the way that the AI generates things by sketching, and we kind of onion skin that back so that they can interact with the system rather than the system replacing them. So kind of to bring this all together, I just want to leave you with this idea that there may be a very promising future by thinking about LLMs as a form of augmentation rather than replacement. How do we augment the way we think, embed humans in that process? How do we take this rich architecture of algorithms that we've developed and use things for what they're really good at, right? If you think about how the brain works, it's not a single system. It's all of these different little computational components that are good at different things like memory or reasoning or vision. And similarly, if we expand our minds beyond our brains, we start to use these different computational components. How do we use them in the right ways? How do we keep humans in that process, in those architectures, to lead to better results than we could with humans or machines alone? And finally, augmenting the interface, right? How do we move beyond them to embed these in all of these rich apps and systems to help us with the real challenges that we're all facing in society today? So if you're interested in this vision, getting involved, we work with a lot of companies in different forums and VCs. Please email me. My email is down here. Also, hire Hyunsu, he's amazing. And looking forward to talking to you more. Thanks.